Okay, the pre-show has started.
Wonderful. Okay, so of course now we're on record no matter what we say.
Okay.
Great.
People have, we try not to get tripped up by that any kind of way. Although I think people like to hear the pre-show where we're just sort of talking and we're not really,
Getting into it.
Yeah, more informal. Things do slip out sometimes, especially if it goes on for a while. Anyway. So, Richard, you'll tell us when we're ready to go. And we have the timer there that'll be reset. So
so you can see the timer on the screen.
I can see
I made it big enough? Okay.
Yep, it's plenty big enough. And so just to let you all know, I'll sort of take things back in, like give people a little chance towards the end of like the final comments or, what you want people to remember. That'll be especially to do with how people can help or get more involved, right? And then we'll close off. Okay. So, and I've started closing off with it Nyawe, because for years I was in a bad habit of not doing that, and I know better. So I've really gotten in a good habit of we have that as the last thing.
Okay.
Vicki, can I send you the link?
Oh, please do. Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. A minute now. No, we'll come in.
Okay, I just texted you the link.
Very good. Yep, I just got it. Thank you. Okay, so. I'm not sure. I haven't figured this out fully, so it may not go on our Instagram account, and I don't know. Maybe you can help with that, Stephanie, if it doesn't. But otherwise, it should be ready to go. So
does that mean you're ready to start?
I am just ready to start. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right, I'm going to restart the timer. And when it says on the air, you're on the air, okay?
Okay, very good.
Okay, watch the timer.
Okay.
Here it goes.
Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future, also the home of our friend and producer, Richard Wicca. Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. And we also thank our friends at WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative radio station at 91.3 FM, coming out of Buffalo State University. We're grateful to everyone at WBNY, especially Greg Harvey and Brian Harrell, who also produce our show on that side of it. And when I think of thankfulness, I can't help thinking of, of how we need to remember our indigenous brothers and sisters, all our friends and relations, and how gratitude is so prominent in spite of the fact that we are on stolen Haudenosaunee land, on land that has been taken through lies and violence, and also our friends who are descended from people who were enslaved and brought here against their will, and still, those people or really wise people know that thankfulness is what's needed, no matter what kinds of trauma and hardship have been and are still being experienced. So we're very, very privileged to have here with us tonight. I haven't even introduced our topic, but which is going to be on data centers, Rethink, Stamp, Plant, Update, and all about data centers. But before we do, what we would normally give the nod to the Gnonyo that Haudenosaunee people start all of their events with. And so we're very privileged and grateful to have both Chris Abrams and Bird or Grandell Logan of the Tonawanda Seneca Nation who are here. Welcome. Thank you. I know you should be welcoming me. That's the other way around. Right? So we just want to hand it over to you, Grandell, Bird. If you would do a Gnonyo for us, we would just love it.
Da one sorry what on da de ni ne gajoko and da ni Hawaii nange wani sadi ho down da adiko e and why would gentle ni on don't go with and da ni Hawaii gas no ne yang go ya the yi how yang go ya the yi start gonna we go ni what gas songa hot down that ni oi nange ni ne and we would gentle ni ne on don't go with I good ni nanda ni oi what Ni wai ni one to ka song ni ka wanong gi and ka get that ni wai one ni ne I engi wo jen thu ni oi wo ni ne oi dong kai wo de ko ni ne gi se he oi wo do get so ni ne I want do and da ni ho wai one I en ka sa wa ni ne ska dong wa ni go hen twa ye ni ne ha de ti no nyo ka we go ho yun zedi and da one I en ka sa wa and da one no ne sa yen and da yun zedi ni wai ha wa ho jenok ta ni wai I en ga ta da tho ni ne ha de yong gui da gi ni wai ha wa ha den do da no kwag no ne de yong go da wani ha wa yun zedi ni wai ha wa I en going za da ha we de yong go da wani ni ne yong gwing en ga da gui do nye and da ni ho wai ni ne wai nan da is hon yo a so ni ne ti no yun zedi de yong go si da ga sa ko and da ni ho on what go jen no ni scar and what ni go hen twa ye ni ne ha de di da no nyo ha de yong gui da gi da ni ho ni yu dong go ni go and da ni ho wai on ko ni ne and da ni ho on ni yu da go wa ho jen nok to ni wai ha wa I and going za da ni ne on gui ni yu in the day ha we de yong go da wa ni yu in the day and da ni Hawaii on ni wai ha we ni ho we wani sa de nyok ni ne song wa we ha de yo ni ne a song go jet da ko hi ni duk ta jits and da ni Hawaii ko on nange muni sa de nyok ni ne sa boda ni ne sa yo ni non ji ha we yun zedi ni wai sa ni ne wa di yen thu ha we nange ni ka ha da go ni ne ha de ga ha da yen dong ni ne sa de ngoi was ho and da ni Hawaii ko on ti ti no nyo ni ne bo ko je no ni ne a ki no yun za de ngoi si da ga sa ko da ni ho ne yu down gong go ni goi and da ni Hawaii ni yo ye ho je no to and da ni ho ni ne wat ka ni ne ha de yo ni ne ho na ga no sa wo yun za de ni wai ha we yon na ga ten jo ni ne ha de bani sa gi ha de wason da gi ni ne a so ka ya de ge ha sa a won do and da ni Hawaii gi sa song ga kat ka ho ni ne he ya da the o gwen yo ni ne he ji na go nan and da ni Hawaii ko on ne swi hikdi wa go jen no ni de ti no nyo on na ga ten jo ha wo yon za de da ni ho ni yu down kong go ni goi and da ni Hawaii ko ni yu na goi wa ho jen ok ta ni wai ha yan di squat ni ho na wini sa de nyo ni hen ka no hi hen yon za de ni ne ka no kti sa and da ni Hawaii ko wat ka ni ne ha de yo de to ni wai ha wa yu de to ni ya ka wo yon za de ni wai en ka ta du gang ni ne si sa o ji ton da sa ka won ka wan and da ni Hawaii on gas wai on no tan yo ni nan da ni ne on non kwa sa so ni gas ni o we ni ne cho wa on go de so en ki ya ta ge hang ni ne ki de so and da ni Hawaii on hong go de swio song sa go yon da song ni nanda ga wi yen da ko and da ni Hawaii on wa go jeno ni de yiti no nyo ni ne o de toni Hawaii yon zade ni kai ko nang ga ko wong go wan si sa o jton da sa da ni ho ni yu down kong go ni go da ni Hawaii ni yu na ga wa ho jeno to and ni wa so ho no ho and ga wi yen da kong ni ne de yiti nyai ni ne nanda ni ne ha ta wan on da non de cho hi ko and da ni device ho ni ne wa di yen thu ha wi nang ga ni ne ga in da go so ni ne wa ni ho o wan no ni ne why not this ni ne wa di yen thu ha wi nang ga ni ne to di no so do and da ni Hawaii ko on ta ti ti no nyo wa go jen no ni ha wi nang ga na da wan on da non ti cho hi ko da ni ho ni yu down ko go ni go da nen da wai ni yu na go wa ho jan no ta ni wai ha de yo wa ka ha wi yin di ni wai ha wa ya go ya da gi hang ni ne yong gui ni ne ga da dang gui da nya ni and da ni Hawaii hong go da su yo sa he yo wa gui go ha so he yo ten jo ha wi yin di ni nan da na o ni ne wa ka and da ni Hawaii on ka gui go de ti wait no ni ha wi yin di and da ni ho on ha de ti no nyo and da ni ho ne yu down hong go di go and da ni Hawaii ko ni yu na kai wa ho jan no ta ni wai ha wa I mo ga da ho san da ha wi go ya da jits and da ni Hawaii ko ni na ha de yo ni ne so go yon da so ha wi ni ne go ya da jits and da ni Hawaii ko ni ne on ha de ti no nyo ga gui go ha wi go ya da jits and da ni ho on wa go jan no ni ha de ti no nyo ga gui go de ti wait no ni ha wi go ya da jits da ni ho ni yu down kong go ni go and da ni Hawaii ko ni yu na go wa ho jan no to ni I mo ga da ho san da ha wi go ya da jits and da ni wai ni ne gi yen di de yong ki yan ya do ni de yong ki shi he ni yu da jits and da ni Hawaii ko ni ne de ti wait no ni ko ni ne ha ya de jits ha wi go ya da jits ni ne sa bo ga wa ne spen da yo ba dong and da ni Hawaii on ni ne so de yong ki nya ni ka gwe go ni ne hong go ni go and da ni Hawaii on hong go da su yo sa so ni ne ha go yon da so and da ni Hawaii ni ne ha di ti no nyo ka gwe go ha wi ni ne go ya da jis ni ki ni di de ki yan na do o de ya ki on no ni ko ni ne sa bo go wa ne no spin da yo wa dong da ni ho ni yu dang kong go ni go and da on ni yu na go wa ho jan no ta ni sa ya ne da yo in di ni I on meski chong da ha wi no go ya di and da ni wai on also wai nan do is on yo ni on gui ha wi yo in di ni sa ka gui go ni ne he yo di wa ten jo ha wi nan ge yo in di ka gui go sang go yin twani and da ni Hawaii ko ni ne so ni ne so ni ne hong go da hoi sa ni ne he wa gui go doi wo no go was and da ni Hawaii on wa go jeno ni o tset wa no nyo ni ne song go jeno to he jo hi and da ni ho ni yu dang kong wa ni go and da on ho gi wa yi so in dong ga wo de ko ni ne he wo do ge to and ni wa on I go gwenyo hong go de so and do sa we ni nan da ho ni sa di and da ni Hawaii on de do town yo ni ne ha de yo ni wai ka gwe go ha di shoni ha wi nan ge ha de yong za da jits ni wai gi sen da ya go bo di yon de ha wi nan ge yon za ta ji nen da ni yon zo de ni ne Tonawanda and da ni Hawaii on I wi no ka twi ni nan da ni yo wa ki ni wai gi sen ha wo gi wets ni san on I sweet ko ta yi sen also a gi hi on ji ni on da wa ka on go we no and da ni ho ni yu dang on go ni go da ni ho oh you
So, and if you can just give us a very brief summary of, first of all, I know that the Ganono can be much longer than that even, but thank you for giving us that, Bird. And if you would just briefly translate the main ideas that came through.
Sure. So I guess I'll kind of start where I ended. The way that I ended it is I had said that I might have made a mistake and that I'm still learning. And if I've like made any mistakes, to not let it like spoil anybody's minds, like if they know our issues, if they know the matter, right? Just so that like folks know that I'm still learning. Even the most experienced speakers will say that as well.
Of course.
So I guess just to start where I ended, but now I guess back to the beginning. So what I began with was saying that it was asked of me that I put through an opening today. And so when I say an opening, what I'm talking about is that Ganonyo, the Oindongay Wadihko, they call it the matters before all else. So it's a speech that comes out. It's a set of words that comes out whenever we gather. And so that's what I started by saying. Whenever we gather at our longhouse, somebody stands up and they pull from this issue that they call the matter before all else. And so basically when we do this as a way to bring ourselves into one mind so that whatever it is that we've gathered for, we can do in a good way. We remind ourselves of everything that we have on the earth that we benefit from and that we ought to be thankful for, because it's by these things that we're able to still gather, these things that take care of us. So typically we start off with talking about the thing that's closest to us, and that would be the people. So what I had said was basically that when he had finished the earth and the Creator had made people for himself, that we're meant to love each other, and we're meant to love each other basically forever. And that we're thankful that a lot of our ceremonies are still carrying on. And then basically we say that now we extend greetings and thanks to each other, and like now our minds are one. And that's how it's going to continue to be in our mind. And so from there, then we start with our order, which is then starting with the earth. And so I started with the earth and basically saying that like the Creator had given us all sorts of things he had planted all kinds of things for us, and that we're lucky that these things are still here and it's still carrying on. And people will be more specific with what they're talking about. So then we give thanks for the earth and our mother, the earth, that supports our feet, and then we carry on to the next thing. And so then people will speak very specifically about a lot of the things in the Thanksgiving address, but what I had done was I had put through what we call Heyoy Wadogeton, which is like to the point. It's short. It's a short opening. And so I started off with speaking about the water and how whenever somebody's thirsty, they can take a drink, and how that it still helps us. It's helpful to us every day and every night, still up to this day, and that we're very lucky that it's still that way. And then I moved on to the plants. I talked a little bit more about the plants. And then I moved on to the three sisters, and then after that, though, so the three sisters being corn, beans, and squash. And so when we talk about them, though, we say Hadawanondanondate Johikong. So that Hadawanondanondate means like they're sisters, they're related. And Johikong is what we're talking about, like the sustainers. So really, when we talk about the like Johikong, we're really talking about all foods. Like we're talking about all foods that sustain us in a good way. But typically when we're talking about these things, we talk about our staple crops, those three sisters, corn, beans, and squash. And then I went on to just bundle in all these other things together that we have here on the earth, and that we're very fortunate that they're still providing for us, they're still taking care of us, that we're still using them, and that like we're bundling them together and we're giving thanks to all of them. And I did the same with a lot of the things in the sky. And then after that, I went more specifically into talking about the four beings and Skanyadayo. So the four beings being like these messengers who we say basically like our guides. They take care of us. They take care of our minds. They use that word that that Diyongki, or it's kind of like they handle us. It's kind of like they handle us, like as we're moving about on the earth. you know. And the way that's how I had it described to me is what they do is it's like if ever you feel that like intuition, say like you want to take another path home, something tells you like, no, I shouldn't, you know, or it's kind of like that. Like, it's kind of like them, like exerting, like, I guess their presence on us, and like they watch over us and they take care of us, and they're messengers for the creator, you know, so they're very important. And then Skonya Dayo too, he came with a message at a very difficult time for our people. And basically when colonization was at its heaviest, and he came and he delivered this message, which basically showed us how to live and coexist with at the time, mainly like white folks coming here who were like the dominant governing powers aside from our own. So all these non-native folks coming from across the water, he helped us to find a way forward, you know, and how to still be Ongohoa people into today. And so finally we talk about the creator, and that we're thankful that everything that he's put here is still carrying on. And then finally, that's when I said that, you know, I've put through the opening. If I've made any mistakes, like don't think harshly of me for making mistakes, because I'm still learning. And so that's basically where I had left it, and that's where about as far as I had decided to go at this time with it, especially because we only have so much time. And like you said, you know, it can be much longer, it can be a little shorter. Different speakers have different ability, you know. Very fluid speakers can go on for 45 minutes to an hour if they wanted to, you know, being very descriptive about all these things that we talk about in this opening. And so it gathers together all these things that we have here on the earth that we're thankful for and that we benefit from, and we acknowledge them for what they do for us, because it's important work.
And it's so important in what we're talking about today, because it really will it centers so beautifully the conversation, and really usually. So first, let me just fully introduce all of you who are here for this show. So Chris Abrams. Chris, we're so grateful for you joining us. Chris is a Tonawanda Seneca of the Beaver clan, and also the office administrator. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, and thank you for coming on, Chris.
No, no problem. Good to be here.
And then, of course, Bird, you know, as Tonawanda Seneca, as a member of the Snipe clan, as a spokesperson for all of the efforts that are going on to especially stop the bad development ideas that are being promoted through the STAMP project. So grateful to have you on as well.
Thank you for having me.
And Stephanie Mejia. So Stephanie, as our new executive director, who is just a fount of knowledge on so many subjects. This is another one that is so important and very close to all our hearts. So it's wonderful to have you on for this very important show too. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And so what we usually do, and I think we can do it very briefly this time, is just a little thing about values. What are the values that we think of when we think about rethinking the stamp plant initiative? So each of us, just some kind of a value. I think, you know, so much of what you said in the Ganoño really centers that. But I want to give people an opportunity. So, Chris, is there a value that you want to mention that is very key to you in all of this?
Well, it all comes down really not only to what Bird refers to and what is in the Ganoño, is the value of our future generations and our children. This is the basis, the most important thing, one of the most important things of why we're having this fight. Because we want to have what we have today to be for them in the future. We don't want the risk of losing anything that we use in ceremonies or in our customs and traditions to be lost because of that development. Because it'd be something that they will not get to learn because it may now no longer exist. That's just our fear of what we may lose with anything that is developed there. If there's any kind of disaster or some environmental disaster in any way, it all leads to Tonawanda territory. the drainage, the lay of the land there, everything heads to the territory. So, as I said, it's for our kids that we are fighting for so hard.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chris. And Bird, what would you say for a value to focus, about this?
Yeah, I would say I would like to second that on the value of land stewardship and that connection to the land. So much of who we are is connected to the land and our territory and the areas surrounding it. Of course, like we have connection to areas on and off territory, but also in thinking about our animal relatives, the birds and our plant relatives as well. They don't have a voice here. They can't speak out. Their very presence is all they can do for us in this fight against STAMP. And so we do all we can to be a voice for them and speak out for them and keep in mind that our cultural health, our physical health is tied directly to their health as well. We have so much that we've lost because of land dispossession. We have so much culture and understanding that's lost because we're unable to do certain practices due to land dispossession and lack of access to specific areas, that I worry, as Chris had been saying, that STAMP stands in a place where it could see us potentially having further land degradation and almost like another form of dispossession through pollution, right? And that's not something that us or our relatives in the big woods can really stand to bear.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Grandell. And Stephanie?
Yeah, so what comes to mind for me is the connection that we all have, understanding and recognizing that what's happening to the communities that Chris and Bert are in are going to eventually or are impacting us now. It's not just a one community issue or one country issue, et cetera, and how important it is to recognize that, because I think people forget that, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, which is really unfortunate, because just because your trees aren't dying or the traditional, tools that you use are, aren't part of your daily life doesn't mean that it won't eventually impact you, or, doesn't mean that you shouldn't care about it. And I think that's just so important, especially, again, with nature and preserving it, but also how it's gentrifying, the land use, how it's impacting housing and how it's impacting other ways people's lives here. We're seeing the bigger and bigger turnouts, thankfully, against these data centers, because it's hitting people's pockets financially. But hopefully it's also people recognize it's more than just finances. It's understanding that it's going to impact our health and our food, and everything connects. Everything connects. All of us connect. So that's what I think about when we're talking about this.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Stephanie. That's so beautiful. I think of, I almost always think of Dr. King and truth and love. That the truth of the matter is, like you said, we're all connected. So whatever they're doing, it's not just affecting one little spot where they are, which they're trying to take one huge spot, and that is twice as big as the one that already got turned down. But anyway, the truth of the matter and all the ways that it's going to, slurp up all the water, bring all kinds of real threats to the Tonawanda Seneca, to your way of life, to the land that is right next to there, right immediately next to there, and all the three wildlife sanctuaries that are right there. So it really couldn't be a worse spot. That's the truth. And the love that we have for each other, as you said, that we're built to love each other, and all of creation, all of our relations. I always think, I love that phrase, me watakias, and all our friends and relations. And I think of all the animals that we can so appreciate, love, learn from. I know in a longer Ganonyo, it goes through, you can go through animal after, or with the plants, so many different ways, and that we can, anyway, be centered on truth and love, that the truth and love that we need to show, that will give us the wisdom and the courage to make sure that things happen in the right way. So I have to say this, there's been, I was very appreciative of the allies of the Tonawanda Seneca Nation. Sarah Howard put together a very nice synopsis of all the things that have gone up to now. And so the updating, we want to really update our Rethink Stamp initiative that we had, or, show that we did way back when, a year ago. And since then, they're promoting an even worse project that is getting even more pushback, to the extent, let me see, what did she say? I think it was, 17 hours of testimony against it. That I was there for a lot of, in two different, at least two different community meetings, that there have been 3,500 public comments that are against it, that have been submitted to the state. And so the state that it's at is, there's the data center moratorium that has been approved by both houses in the state house, and is waiting to be signed by Governor Hochul. And until she signs it, it does not go into effect. So, so I want to go around and have people add whatever they want to add about, the proposed project, what wouldn't work about it, what's been happening, just updating people on the dangers and the possibilities. So, Chris?
Yes. Well, one of the messages we want to get out there to the people is that, this is not a done deal. Though there's been movement, by GCDC, there's a lot still need to be done, especially by stream. There's the town planning board that still has to vote for approval or denial on the site plan. Mm-hmm. So once that happens, nothing can move forward. And even with the moratorium, it's great that it's in place. It gives us more time to gather back together to find other ways to fight this and to continue what we're doing now. But yet, we just want to make sure that people don't think it's the silver bullet that's going to stop the data center. It won't, but it's hopefully something that would just give us more time to come up with other ways and all the ways of addressing what that data center will do to not only to our territory, but the surrounding area, to the people of the town of Alabama, who have grown, like you said, in numbers of becoming allies, and it just has spread across the state, actually. And we never really thought that would ever happen, or that we even had to go to that extent, but we needed it. We needed more voices to speak on what was happening today, not just us. So we are just so very grateful for the work that Sarah has done to gather the allies and to keep everybody up to date, and really doing a lot of research, talking to local officials in the city of Batavia, let alone assemblymen and so forth of the state. There's just so much that has to be done to put in everybody's, face and to listen to those voices and read those letters, to read all those concerns. It's real. And what is troublesome to me is that all this hinges on is the vote of 5 people. The planning board, they are making decisions that can affect our lives and our livelihood and our way of life on the territory for our nation. And it's just mind-boggling that, we don't think they see that. And we hope, though, from the last hearing, everybody had such great comments when we addressed the planning board, that they listened, that they learned something. Because we just feel sometimes that GCDC and their legal team is leading them by the nose. They're not really thinking. They're not looking to what we see and what our concerns are and what we feel. They don't. And so it's just, that's a lot of responsibility. And I hope that they know that what they're voting on is affecting everyone's lives today as well as the future.
Right. Well, thank you. Thanks, Chris. So true. So powerful, too. So important. Bird?
Yeah, I just want to, I guess, reiterate that fact. I mean, it's been a year since we've met, and I feel like we may have different listeners now than we did then, too. You just never know. So there's one thing I think I'd ought to reiterate for us as Tonawanda Senecas. So as Tonawanda Seneca people, we are a member nation of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. And we are, a sovereign, entity. The Tonawanda Seneca Nation is a separate government. We are basically a nation within a nation, is how I like to describe it to people at times. And so that means that we're non-participatory. So, it seems to a lot of people that we rely heavily on our allies, and we do rely very heavily on them because we don't vote. We can't vote our way out of this. We rely upon them to lobby for us, to bother those lawmakers that Chris had mentioned. And it's been a huge help up to this point. And so what else I'd like to say too is we keep saying that this is a bigger plan, this is double the size. And so I think we ought to put a face to the beast and put a little bit of size to it. So this one is now literally double the size. And when we say double, the previous plan was 250 megawatts it was slated to use. Now 500 megawatts is what they plan to use should the new data center plan go through. It also stands at 2.2 million square feet. And it'll have 3 buildings between 2 separate sites, the old Plug Power site and a site across the road from Edwards Vacuum. So both within STAMP, objectively closer to our nation as well. And so a huge concern with it is the noise. The noise is one big thing. The noise is one thing we reference a lot. So this data center is a little bit different than other data center plans that you hear about from across the country, where it's not planning on using water to cool, where they're going to be using hundreds of thousands of gallons of water just to cool. They'll be using these 165 or so of these chillers on the roof of the buildings, which are basically giant industrial-sized air conditioners meant to cool the technology in the servers and within the data center to keep it cool. So that's where a lot of that immense power drain comes from. And so these things will inevitably generate a lot of noise. They tell us it'll be 65 decibels at the most at the actual data center site. And that's dBA, which is a weighting, a frequency weighting, which is more around the frequencies that humans can hear. Whereas there's another wavelength they should be reading, another weighting called dBc, which accounts more for a lot of the sounds we don't hear, a lot of the sounds we feel, as a matter of fact. So, and if you were to take a meter that reads that, it will read higher than dBA typically. So they say it'll be 65 dBA at the most, 45 at the least, and it should have no impact. But that's impossible to say because there's no large scale manufacturing near the big woods, in the big woods. It's not that high traffic. It's a very quiet area of our territory. So understandably, you can't really say that there's not going to be an impact or there's an acceptable amount of risk, which is something we dislike to hear, because how can you tell us what's okay in risking our territory? This is where that concept of the two-row wampum becomes very important here, because now you have actions off territory that are impacting our lives here on territory. And it's directly impacting our lands in a way that's going to negatively affect our free use and enjoyment, right? That language from the Canandaigua Treaty, it's going to have an effect here. And we need people to realize that. And so also, there's more studies coming out about what's known as the heat island effect, which shows that like for miles, and I want to say within 5 miles, this one study said the ground can heat up around 9 degrees from what's typical for that area. And so we're well within that 5 mile mark. We're well within these boundaries that we're basically in like a kill zone for a lot of these things. And now when we talk about that, that's when we can really get into our plant relatives, because they rely on temperature as an indicator to grow, right? And the pollinators rely on temperature as an indicator to grow. And you heat up the earth around it, and there's a difference between the ground warmth and the air. You're going to have plants coming up too early. You're going to have animals. You're going to have these pollinators coming up way too early. And it's not going to be good for them in the long run. So you can't tell me that there's not going to be an impact. It's impossible to say, especially considering there's nothing over there that's of a scale like this, that is impossible to say there would be no impact.
Right. And it seems obvious that there would be huge impact. So, Stephanie. Yeah, Stephanie. Yeah.
I mean, even though I know quite a bit more than the average person, unfortunately, on this, I consider you folks the experts because you folks are living this right now. I think it's extremely important to acknowledge that, and also to acknowledge how these data centers are impacting BIPOC communities.
Right.
Specifically, if this was going to enter, an affluent area, let's say, for example, downtown here in the city, Elmwood Village is known as that, there would be a huge uproar. And I think that's what's really frustrating me is how continuously our communities, lower income, BIPOC, et cetera, are targeted and disregarded. So I think it's really great that these allies are coming in and supporting this cause. But again, reinforcing the fact that even though there's a moratorium in place, not only does that give us time to prepare for it, it gives them time too. It gives them time to restructure their plan, their strategic plan, to switch up the rules, switch up the plan, lobby against us, etc. They also have an upper hand here as well, which is what makes me fearful. And I want people to recognize that, like, just because there's a moratorium, it's not enough. We should just squash it. There should be no moratorium. There should be an absolute ban, in my opinion. I don't see the benefits of this, especially if you look at this financially. There's been a lot of reporting on, the jobs that this market's going to bring in. What is like 1.2, it depends on which data center you're looking at, but over millions of dollars per job. That's ridiculous.
Right.
I think that's a slap in the face to taxpayers and these representatives. Like, how embarrassing that, representatives are considering giving a stipend to these data centers for a couple hundred jobs, not even, when there's an enormous impact, not only acutely, but also long-term. How, we're talking about nature and everything, but what happens in 10, 20 years? How is that going to impact our ability to, our kids, we're looking at examples too. People are reporting their sleep habits are being disturbed, headaches, et cetera. That also increases other issues, cardiovascular issues. You can look at mental health issues, and then that falls into economic issues that impacts your job, and then productivity issues. It is a domino effect. So it's again, going back to the thing, everything is connected. And I want folks to really remember that just because you might not feel it right now, or you might not feel it in your lifetime. Maybe you won't, but your kids will, your friends will, your friends' kids will, etc. Like, don't you want to leave this place better than you left it? So that's what's coming to mind for me.
Thank you. Yes, so much. That's so important. One thing I'll say, first of all, the moratorium. Thank you for the good points you made about that. One of them, though, I want to say is it's not even in place. So we still need Kathy Hochul to sign it, and whether she will or not. So I want to encourage, really beg people to definitely call her, email her, write to her, call her. We should end up on her front lawn someday. Oh, I hear she moved to New York City, so that's a little harder.
Also call the people that she is supporting too. There's a lot of races going on right now.
Oh, yes.
The Senate seat is up for grabs, and there's going to be more future races. Call them too and be like, well, Kathy Hochul is supporting you and endorsing you. Well, and if she doesn't sign this, then that's also going to impact my vote for you. That's how I would use it. I'm not going to vote for you if the person endorsing you is impacting my life negatively or the life of my peers, my family, my community members. So it's again, building up capital. Like, we have a lot of power, especially with these races going on. Use that to your advantage. Kathy Hochul, again, she has the race coming up too. This is, keep holding her accountable and keep all her friends and buddies, all the people that she's endorsing, accountable as well, because they are all connected as well. So if one goes down, another might as well.
And so another piece about that is, so first of all, absolutely spot on. So definitely people should be getting in touch with these people running for these different spots in the legislature, either, Senate and Assembly. The other thing is, as you pointed out, that as it gives us more time, it also gives these deep-pocketed, relentless corporate sponsors time. And I was very shocked and sickened to hear that Apollo Management, which has all kinds of Jeffrey Epstein ties and all kinds of other ties, that they are one of the people who's involved in this new onslaught. And the fact that the first one didn't make it, the first data center, right? So when that was rejected, and now this is an even worse deal. So how and why would they take it would be ridiculous. But it's just, if people, the world, the planet, the creation, and the very survival really of the Tonawanda Seneca Nation and the areas around there, if that doesn't matter, if it's just all about this, they just want to do this. And I want to say, do we need some data centers? Yes, and we have some. But do we need to have data centers so that who shall not be named can make videos, with AI that are videos of crapping all over the protesters? That's what these data centers enable. Doesn't make sense, doesn't make any sense. And it's only if the bullies who have the deep pockets just keep pressing their issue, we just have to push back just as hard. So going around again, let's talk about sort of what we want to see and what we don't want to see, how people can find out more and get more involved too, is always in there. And I think that's been a thread as we're talking, but that's especially important as people are hearing this. So, Chris?
Yeah. Yes, to check out the website, LS of TSN. There is so much on there that gives suggestions of what you could do to voice your concern as well, either by letters, emails, phone calls. That is still ongoing. And keep having that push. And like I said to begin with, that, this is not a done deal. So we have to stay vigilant in this fight. We don't slow down. We just keep pushing harder. And so that's what I would say, that we have to continue this. There's no slack in here at all, because we know, as you said, they are not. So, and they're finding ways to probably offset what we're telling them, of course. But also there's been so many, just not social media, but also many articles in recent publications where, people are gathering to say this no to data centers all around the country, let alone New York State. And so with our voices helping that, adding the voices of everybody and anybody that can join, but just keep that message out there for a very long time and make it a strong message. So that's what I just hope to keep going, that people do not let up, can't slack off, Like I said, the moratorium is no silver bullet here, but hopefully it will happen. In fact, we got to keep up front, because maybe at the end we can make it 2 or 3 years. Who knows? That could be possible to add on, that we just find so much information, enough that people are getting fed up with it, and that we want to have it, be a longer moratorium. That could happen as well. But yes, just keeping it up in front of everybody, and just hearing and seeing how much the opposition is out there.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Bird?
Yeah. So my first comment always when I hear what do we want at STAMP, my first thought is always, well, nothing. Our nation's against it. But it's of course like, you can't just be like, no, you can't. They don't want to hear that. We told them that in the beginning. They didn't care for it, and they don't care for it now. So, I mean, I look at a little bit of what's in like the town zoning laws, and the town zoning law mentions that any use should be harmonious with what exists in the area, and so what exists in the area, you have these wildlife refuges, you have our nation here, our nation who worked very closely with different groups when talking about like plant restoration, learning more about how we can take care of our environment and things like that from a scientific standpoint, and it makes me wonder, like, well, why wouldn't they want to find a way to, marry the missions of all of these things, like there's a lot of threatened and endangered native plants, is that an option for them? Is that an option that they would like to consider? Is that like a native plant nursery or something or other, or like this is a stopping point for migratory birds? Like every now and again, there's rescues that come in, is there a place for like an animal rescue, a small animal rescue, something like that, like, or even just like maybe GCEDC doesn't spend so much time thinking about STAMP as much as they start thinking about a lot of the small businesses they have in Genesee County. There's a lot of people out around here who are trying to get businesses up and running. Because again, that's the one thing that we keep saying is we're not against Genesee County residents having jobs. Like we're not against them creating jobs for their people, but we don't want anything that's going to impact and destroy our environment. That's going to impact our customs and usage years down the line, generations ahead. This isn't what we want. And so if there's going to be anything there, well, make it something that is going to be beneficial to truly everybody in the area, not even just the people, but the animals and the plants as well.
Beautiful. Yes. Thank you for all those ideas. Stephanie?
I actually have a question for Chris and Bird. How right now, how is even the fight affecting you and your community? Like when I talk about that, the time, the money, the stress, the time away maybe from your community and your usual daily life. I'm curious how the fact that you have to continuously fight to protect your home and your community, how is that impacting you, and in what ways?
It's a balance. It's a balancing act for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Between having a ceremonial life, between having an activist life and having a social life, it's a balancing act between the three. Like all the month of May, I was off. So I don't fight against STAMP full time. And of course I think about STAMP full time, but I also have a day job where I work here at the Nation with our language program. It's where I went and learned our language. I learned it in our program we call Hanantowni Hanandea Stakwa, which is like they're making the path school is what they call that. And so like I work there as a community language resource coordinator. So I also teach community classes. Actually, Chris joins some of my community classes when she's got the time, and there's times where I have to cancel class because I have to go speak about something at STAMP, or I have to be away for a weekend or for a couple of days because I have to go someplace to talk about AI, or I have to go away and talk about and go attend like ceremonies, or go to a language conference. All the month of May, I was off doing all kinds of things, and I was hardly home. It's a balancing act, but the way that I look at it personally is, the ceremonies come first. Whenever ceremonies come up, that's where, I try to attend if I can. If somebody can go to any of these things, between Chris and I, we do have a pretty good, availability to be able to like kind of push things off on each other when we have to, because I firmly believe that it's our ceremonies that have led us up to this point. It's our ceremonies that, like, the world knows what we're trying to do. Our environment knows what we're doing, and that we're thankful for it. And so these things are still important for us to keep up. So it's just a balancing act, and it's exhausting having to weigh what to do and what not to do at any given time.
To have such a threat hanging in your head the whole time. So we're coming around actually to the end. We're almost at the end of the show. So if we can just go around and, I think bearing Steph's question in mind as well, and also what you want people to take with them after listening to this show. If we can just go around on that. So Chris?
Yeah, well, I hope that they're getting the message of how important this is, how important it is to fight the data center that they want to put there. But I also want them to know that it's just not the data center. The nation is fighting the whole entire stamp site. We feel that will be detrimental to us as a people, to our land, to the animals, wildlife, everything that we've been talking about tonight. It's a whole stamp site. And some do say that, they are fighting the data center, but they are okay with the stamp, which is fine. But if they're here to help us in some way, we still welcome it. And maybe it may change their mind to say, hey, maybe I need to just fight this whole site as well, But what it is doing to us as far as, it's an emotional thing because we're so worried about our children. We're worried about how our children are going to be living. What is there that's going to be left for them? So it's a fight that I take to heart, and it's something that I do think all the time. I mean, not only in the office, I see all that's coming forward to us on the stamp from DEC, from out state agencies, from GCEDC. I'm seeing all that. And there's so much fight. There's so much to fight out there. There's so many facets to it. I don't know if anybody can really imagine what it is. It's not just the noise. It's not just the trucks, transportation. There is so much more that can happen to bring that kind of monstrous data center to us. There's more than a fight. So that's why we just need the help of everybody. And we're thankful for who we have right now, all the allies and those across the state. We all, like 70%, we're all connected. We are connected to Mother Earth, whether we realize that or think about it. Yeah, that's the money. That's what GCDC and some of the people on the town board are about, is money. And so you can't, there's no cost that you can put on any laws that we may have here on our territory. There's no cost. There's no price. Everything's priceless here.
Right, priceless. Thank you so much, Chris. We really are running out of time, but so just briefly, Bird, what would you want people to take as bottom line here?
Well, I will encourage anybody who is willing to be activated on this to join in what we're trying to do. Go to the Allies of Tonawanda Seneca website. We're all individuals. We all have our own strengths and weaknesses, and you might bring something very valuable to what we're trying to do here. Whether you're here for our future, whether you're here for your own future, you're here for taxes or energy cost, anything, it's all valuable for this fight. We all have our own reasons to fight this, and we're thankful if you even decide to join. And I'll just have to say too that this entire time, our argument has been not only for our health and our environment, but for our customs and who we are. And for some reason, that's not good enough. That's not good enough to say, okay, we'll do different. We'll do something different. This entire time, it's just been, well, there's an acceptable amount of risk here to your customs and usage, by extension of acceptable risk to the environment. And it's not something that we're okay with. And if that's the way they're going to continue, well, I'm just going to say that's extremely colonial.
Right.
Mhm.
Tell it. So true.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bird. And Stephanie, just briefly.
There's a couple things I'm going to say very fast. The reason I asked that question is because I want people to understand how not the future impact of what might happen if this is built here, but like what it's doing to your community right now. Right. And to understand that, like how impactful this stress is and this worry is to like continually have to fight for your lives and your customs, which is ridiculous. It's unfair. And it's a privilege that we don't have to do that yet. But eventually we will, and we have to stop this altogether. And so what I think of what people can do is to recognize that, how it's impacting people right now and how it will in the future, but also to use their voices. I know a lot of people are afraid of politics. And I quote that because I have a feeling about calling it politics, but force you or strongly encourage your local media representatives to continue covering this. So I know there's been a lot of different media covering it and doing interviews and stuff like that. I have a personal friend, Dale Shoemaker, who's been doing a lot of writing for this and is very invested, and I hope it continues. So support those media outlets that are doing that work, push the media outlets that aren't, and ask yourself why aren't they focusing on this? What is the reason? And call your reporters, be like, I want you guys to talk about this. I don't want to hear anything else about this. I want to hear about what's going on with this data center and how it's going to impact this community and eventually us. So it's support the media, encourage, your representatives and your media to talk about this more. And support the community, because that's the way you can support the community. And the last thing is talk to your neighbor. Talk to your neighbor about it. If you know something about it, talk to your neighbor so they can know more about it. And that's how you information share and make this conversation even bigger. So that's where I'll end off.
Thank you, Stephanie. So very good. I'm going to say, it's also important. People, there's all these very strong reasons that people have been presented with, how we are all connected, how we all will pay the price if this thing is going through or other equivalent, and especially for the very existence of the traditional Tonawanda Seneca Nation as a very traditional nation. It's all the more reason we need to honor our treaties, honor our promises, honor the Turo Wampum, and all work together. So I'm so grateful to each one of you for your time, for being here, for all your work and all your activism. This is Talking Peace, and together we've been talking peace in truth and love. And lastly, I just wanted to say, I'll say Nyahweh, and people can say Nyo or Je to just close it off as we need to. So Nyahweh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Blessings. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki.
Thank you so much. Okay, so Richard, we're done. I hope you heard my clap. Yeah. So anyway, thank you. That was a great show. No technical difficulties.
We did it this time. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Stephanie, we had our own. It's the only show that we had to go back and retape part of it because half of it didn't register or something. So anyway, but this was a great show, very strong show. Thank you, each one of you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Bird, Chris.